Have you ever met someone who leaves you more confused than calm, more exhausted than energized? Do you feel like no matter how hard you try, peace slips further away every time you let this person into your space? What if I told you, not every storm in your life is caused by circumstance. Some are sent through people. If you're tired of feeling drained, isolated, or spiritually disconnected, this message is for you. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe for everyday insights into self-mastery, Stoic thinking, and personal transformation. Let's break free from toxic patterns together. In the journey of self-improvement, one of the most overlooked dangers is not failure. It's people. Yes, people who don't look like a threat, but slowly unravel your focus, your peace, and your identity. Today, I want to walk you through 5 critical signs that someone in your life may not be here to help you grow, but to tear you down from the inside out. Let's get into it. 1. They are agents of chaos, even in peaceful moments. Stoic philosophy teaches us to protect our inner peace as though it were a sacred flame. This peace, once established, must not be disturbed by every breeze of external turbulence. But there are people, specific types of individuals, who seem to carry chaos within them like a storm barely contained beneath the surface. They may not always raise their voices or act out dramatically. Sometimes their mere presence is enough to distort the atmosphere, to darken a clear day with a kind of emotional smog. These individuals don't just arrive, they disrupt. You may notice that rooms grow tenser when they walk in, that laughter dims and harmony becomes strained. It's not about what they say outright, but about the subtle ways they inject anxiety into calm, suspicion into clarity, and hostility into otherwise neutral conversations. They stir conflict not just through words, but through insinuations, postures, passive-aggressive silences, and ambiguous comments that seem to poison the well of peace. Marcus Aurelius, a prominent Stoic emperor, advised himself daily to expect difficult people. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't pessimism. It was preparation. It was his way of fortifying the mind against external forces of disorder. The Stoics knew that we can't always choose who walks into our lives, but we can choose how we let them affect us. If your emotional state feels like a roller coaster in the presence of a certain person, that is not an accident. You may find yourself excited and validated one moment, only to be cast into confusion or despair the next. This emotional instability isn't coincidental, it's manufactured. Over time, it forms a pattern. And patterns, as any Stoic would assert, are more revealing than excuses. They are evidence. We must not ignore these cues. The inner harmony that Stoicism teaches is not about retreating from life, but about learning to maintain stillness in the midst of it. When someone consistently disrupts that stillness, no matter how charming, attractive, or important they may seem, we must reconsider their place in our lives. Peace should not collapse at their arrival. If it does, it is not your peace that is too fragile. It is their presence that is too volatile. A Stoic response is not to retaliate or confront in anger. Instead, it is to observe, to understand, and to create boundaries. Not all agents of chaos scream, some whisper, some smile, some even claim to bring clarity. But watch the room, watch your body, listen to your heart rate. Your inner flame knows when someone is trying to blow it out. Protect it. 2. They isolate you from your support system. At first, their attention can feel flattering. They may present themselves as the only person who truly gets you. You feel seen, heard, even cherished. But very slowly, almost imperceptibly, the walls begin to close in. They may start with subtle critiques. Are you sure your friend has your best interest at heart? Your family doesn't really understand you like I do. I just want to protect you from being hurt again. What appears as care often hides a darker motive: control. Isolation is not an accident in toxic dynamics. It's a strategy. Once your connections to your support system are weakened, you become easier to manipulate, easier to confuse, easier to gaslight. You lose the mirrors that once reflected your truth, making it easier for another person to rewrite your story. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, advised seeking counsel from those who are virtuous and grounded. Associate with those who will make a better man of you, he said. When someone is pulling you away from the people who have known you longest or supported you most consistently, ask why. Is it really about your well-being, or is it about their control? This tactic doesn't always come in the form of ultimatums. Often it's emotional leverage, making you feel guilty for spending time with others, creating conflicts that force you to choose between your relationships and their approval. Over time, you find yourself more isolated, more dependent, and more vulnerable. The Stoic path calls for independence of mind and clarity of judgment. These are only possible when we are not trapped in someone else's emotional web. If you notice that someone is consistently undermining your other relationships, it is a red flag, not of love, but of domination. True love connects. Manipulation severs. Protect your tribe. Your support system is not a threat to love. It's a fortress for your soul. Anyone who tries to dismantle that is not building a future with you. They're laying a trap. 3. They drain more than they give. Some relationships leave you feeling energized, understood, and grounded. Others leave you hollow, like a well that's been dipped into too many times. If you consistently feel emotionally exhausted after spending time with someone, it may not be a reflection of your own shortcomings. It may be a sign you're in the presence of someone who takes more than they give. These people may not appear malicious. They often present themselves as deeply wounded, in need of care, constantly in crisis, and if you're a compassionate person, you'll naturally respond with kindness. But this kindness becomes a transaction with no end. You become the permanent provider of emotional labor, while they offer little in return. They might always be going through something, always needing a shoulder, always asking for favors. But when you need support, they vanish. Or worse, they make your pain about them. Over time, you begin to internalize the imbalance. You start to question whether your needs are even valid. The Stoics emphasized the importance of reciprocity in relationships. Epictetus advised avoiding people who corrupt your peace or demand too much of your energy. He taught that friendships must be mutual, founded on virtue, not exploitation. Emotional vampires are rarely obvious at first. They mask their constant taking as vulnerability, as charm, or as the result of bad luck. But if someone leaves you consistently depleted, if your joy withers in their presence, the verdict is clear. You are not in a relationship. You are in a drain. You owe no one your constant availability. You are allowed to have limits, to protect your energy, and to walk away from those who do not nourish your spirit. Your compassion is a gift, not a resource to be mined endlessly. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. If someone consistently poisons those thoughts with negativity, neediness, or manipulation, it is not unkind to create distance. It is wisdom. 4. They undermine your spiritual or moral foundation. Growth is sacred. Whether it comes through spiritual devotion, personal values, or an internal moral compass, Our journey toward becoming better human beings is something to be protected and nurtured. But not everyone in your life sees it that way. Some people, often the ones closest to you, may subtly or overtly undermine the very foundation upon which you build your character. They don't do it because they care. They do it because they feel threatened by your transformation. At the core, spiritual and moral growth is a deeply personal journey. It's rooted in a desire to live with integrity, to align your actions with your beliefs, and to contribute positively to the world. When you take that path, it often means questioning toxic patterns, refusing to engage in gossip, practicing forgiveness instead of revenge, or choosing peace over drama. These changes may unsettle those who are still stuck in cycles of bitterness or immaturity. Toxic people don't always attack your growth directly. Sometimes they operate through mockery, sarcasm, or concern. They might say, "Oh, you're so spiritual now," with a laugh. Or, "I liked you better before you got so serious about all this self-help stuff." These aren't harmless jokes. They're veiled attempts to pull you back down to a level where they feel more comfortable. Worse, they often choose to strike during your weakest moments. Maybe you've just experienced a loss, a failure, or a moment of doubt. That's when they pounce. They'll plant seeds like, "Where's your God now?" Or, "I thought meditation was supposed to help with stuff like this." In those fragile times, their words can feel like poison. It's not just your beliefs they're questioning. It's your right to heal, grow, and evolve. Spiritual warfare isn't always loud. It's rarely someone shouting in your face. More often, it's a quiet erosion of your trust in yourself. It's distraction disguised as fun. It's discouragement masked as advice. It's disbelief cloaked in concern. You'll start skipping your morning rituals to appease others. You'll water down your convictions just to keep the peace. Over time, you forget why you started this journey in the first place, and that's exactly the point. They don't want you to grow because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Your light exposes their shadows. Your discipline highlights their chaos. So instead of rising with you, they try to dim you. They try to convince you that your values are unrealistic, that your faith is naive, and that your boundaries are selfish. But remember, just because someone feels offended by your boundaries doesn't mean your boundaries are wrong. Being mindful is your defense. Pay attention to who uplifts your values and who tries to chip away at them. Look closely at who respects your need for reflection, prayer, solitude, or ethical consistency, and who treats those things like a joke. You deserve relationships that honor your inner growth, not ones that hinder it. Sometimes, protecting your path means walking it alone for a while. That solitude can be painful, but it's also purifying. It gives you space to reconnect with what matters most, to rebuild your spiritual or moral foundation without external interference. And when you do reconnect, you return stronger, more centered, and less vulnerable to manipulation. Your growth is not up for debate. It doesn't require permission, validation, or applause. Let the world mock if it must. Let others misunderstand you. Their confusion is not your burden. Your task is to continue walking your path with courage, humility, and clarity, no matter who tries to steer you off course. 5. They weaponize your insecurities. At first, they seem like a safe haven. They listen, they empathize, they echo your pain as if it were their own. You begin to open up, slowly at first, then all at once. You share things you rarely tell anyone. Your fears, your past mistakes, your deepest doubts. And in that vulnerable space, you feel seen. You feel understood. But over time, something shifts. The same person who once comforted you begins to use your vulnerability against you. They bring up your insecurities during arguments. They remind you of your flaws when you try to assert yourself. What was once a bond of trust becomes a chain of control. The very things you confided in them become tools they use to cut you down. This is emotional manipulation in one of its cruelest forms. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual erosion. They might say things like, "You're always so sensitive," after they've just hit a nerve they know exists. Or they'll offer backhanded compliments like, "You've come a long way for someone with your background." These comments are designed not just to hurt, but to remind you of your perceived place in the world, beneath them. They become experts at pushing your buttons because you handed them the remote. But that doesn't mean it's your fault. Trusting someone is not a weakness. Weaponizing that trust is. People who use your insecurities against you are not interested in your healing. They're interested in control. The more uncertain you are about yourself, the more power they have over you. If you're always questioning your worth, you'll be more likely to tolerate their mistreatment. If you're convinced that no one else will understand you the way they do, you'll stay out of fear, not love. This behavior is not always loud either. Sometimes it shows up as subtle sabotage. They'll forget to encourage you when you try something new. They'll undermine your confidence with phrases like, "Are you sure you can handle that?" Or, "You know how you get when you're stressed." These aren't just doubts, they're tactics to shrink you. And let's be clear, anyone who makes you feel smaller so they can feel bigger is not your ally. They're a threat to your self-worth, your peace, and your potential. You were not born to tiptoe around someone else's ego. You are not made to be diminished by the person who claims to care for you. Healing from this kind of manipulation begins with awareness. Start noticing the patterns. Are your conversations leaving you drained instead of empowered? Are your self-doubts growing stronger in their presence? Do you feel like you have to earn their affection by being less of yourself? If so, it's time to reconsider the role they play in your life. You don't need someone who mirrors your fears. You need someone who reflects your strength even when you forget it. Someone who holds space for your growth, not someone who manipulates your wounds. The right people will handle your insecurities with care, not use them as leverage. Reclaiming your power might mean pulling back or walking away. It might mean confronting hard truths or setting boundaries you were once afraid to set. But your peace is worth that courage. Your self-worth is not a weapon, and you never have to justify your pain to someone who uses it to harm you. You are not broken, you were betrayed. There's a difference. And healing begins the moment you decide you are worthy of a life free from that betrayal. Now let's be clear, not every difficult relationship is spiritual warfare. But when you see these signs together, it's time to act, not with hatred, but with clarity. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Protect your peace, guard your energy, and most importantly, know that you have the authority to walk away from what poisons your purpose. If this message resonated with you, subscribe for more Stoic insights and personal growth content. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, peace isn't a destination, it's a daily decision.